Furuya is a hopeless loser who spends his life watching garbage zombie movies and dreaming about getting a zombie girlfriend, because real girls are above his pay grade. However, everything changes when his beloved cat Babu dies in an accident, and he discovers an old notebook describing resurrection rituals. From that moment, Furuya becomes obsessed with bringing the dead back to life. But before this, Furuya's daily life is already a low-budget circus. He lives at Shiryoji Temple with a family that barely functions: his father, grandfather, 12-year-old sister Mero, and Babu, the cat that wandered in and never left. His mother died when he was very young, and by now he has grown used to a house that feels normal without her. Then one day an old neighbor accidentally runs over Babu, and that small, stable world collapses, leaving Furuya in despair. While sitting alone, he remembers a battered old book hidden in his cupboard that everyone considered worthless junk. For some reason, he becomes convinced that the book contains a real method of resurrection. That same night, he digs Babu out of the grave and carries the body to a deserted mansion that even the locals are afraid to approach, planning to begin his totally not illegal ritual there. While mixing strange chemicals inside the building, he suddenly hears someone shouting near the old well outside. He looks out the window and sees a girl about his age screaming at the top of her lungs into the well. During the day, he keeps Babu in an icebox in his room and leaves for school as if nothing is wrong. On the way to school, his friend complains about why they are not passing by SankaRea Academy, the holy land of rich, unreachable girls. This guy's entire personality is chasing sugar mommies, and his target is Rhea Sanka, rich, elegant, and comfortably out of their league. She's the daughter of the academy director. Later that day, Furuya's cousin Ranko drops by the temple to deliver some stuff. Finding out Furuya is still sleeping, she storms into his room and discovers him drooling on the bed. She returns the zombie DVDs she lent him. He asks Ranko about Rhea, but she knows nothing and immediately accuses him of being in love with her. Furuya denies it, claiming he only wants some information, which manages to sound even more suspicious. Before leaving, she Batista bombs him onto the bed and tells him to come over on the weekend with more zombie movies. In the evenings, he continues working on the resurrection. One page of the book is badly burnt and almost unreadable. Only the words "insert poisonous herb" can be made out, which is not exactly a comforting instruction. He tries a few things, but nothing works. Just as he considers giving up, he hears footsteps again and sees the same girl from before standing by the well. This time, he listens carefully. Rhea is shouting that she hates being born into her family and wants to live like a normal, invisible schoolgirl. She also complains that her father keeps taking revealing photos of her with the excuse of recording her growth. Hearing this, Furuya drops the bottle he is holding, and Rhea finally notices him. Gathering himself, Furuya invites her inside the building, and after a long, uncomfortable silence, she begs him not to tell anyone what he heard, and even offers to do oral favors in return. Not knowing what a normal person is supposed to say in this situation, Furuya tells her he understands how trapped she must feel, and decides to trust her with his own secret. He leads her to the makeshift lab and explains that he is trying to bring his dead cat back to life, admitting that he is close to giving up. To his surprise, Rhea looks at him seriously and says she believes he can succeed. She then shocks him further by asking to become his assistant. When Furuya wonders why a popular girl would want to spend time in a dusty ruin that smells like failure, she explains she only wants the chance to care for an animal since her father hates pets and has banned them like dangerous criminals. Furuya thinks for a moment and teases that if she really wants to help, she can volunteer as the test subject for the potion. Rhea is horrified, and he quickly laughs it off, warning her not to believe everything a boy says unless she's collecting emotional damage. He adds that such innocence is probably why she doesn't have a boyfriend. Rhea argues she is not naive at all and turns the question back on him. Furuya calmly admits he has no girlfriend because his type is deceased. Rhea assumes he is joking again, but he looks completely serious and says the only problem is there are no undead girls in this world. Hearing this, Rhea smiles and asks whether he would take responsibility for her if she actually became a zombie after testing the potion. The question hits him like an unexpected exam, and before he can answer, she laughs, tells him to think about it, and promises to return the next day. True to her words, Rhea comes back the next day, and while Furuya continues his heroic battle against basic chemistry, she sits beside him watching a zombie movie in Ultra HD. Somehow, this is her first time seeing one, yet she stares at rotting corpses without even flinching. Furuya acts like a seasoned expert, explaining scenes with confidence even though his entire education comes from cheap DVDs and an overworked imagination. While helping with the experiments, Rhea asks what other poisonous herbs he plans to use. Furuya admits he has already tried more herbs than any responsible human should touch, but nothing has worked so far, and half the manuscript is unreadable, and therefore, his grand necromancy project is built on guesswork, blind hope, and ingredients chosen at random. He jokes that Rhea might have to eat the dead cat if everything fails, and she nods like he just suggested pizza toppings. Then suddenly she remembers something important and runs off. On the way she stumbles and Furuya pretends not to notice, but of course he stares. A flashback reveals her childhood and the reasons she views the world with such bitterness. Her father controlled every part of her life in disturbing ways. When she was little and fell while playing with a maid, the maid was dismissed the very next day. On another occasion, she played with a stray cat in the garden. Before long, the cat vanished, and the maids disappeared as well. Through it all, her mother Aria remained cold and silent, like a piece of furniture that occasionally breathes. Every birthday her father took nude photos of her, under the excuse of measuring her growth, and somehow no one thought this was insane. So, as Rhea grew older, she realized her home wasn't strict. It was a carefully decorated nightmare. At school she finally made a friend and assumed every family had some dirty secrets. But after visiting that friend's house and seeing a perfectly ordinary father, Rhea understood how abnormal her own life really was. She tried talking about it, but the more she spoke, the smaller the cage seemed to become. Back in the present, Furuya waits for Rhea, doing absolutely nothing with impressive commitment. Growing worried, he goes searching and finds her climbing a cliff to pick a specific herb. She slips, and Furuya barely manages to grab her hand before gravity tries to make her tomato paste. When he asks why she risked her life, Rhea calmly says she trusted him to revive her if she died. Furuya finds himself without an answer to that unexpected level of faith. Rhea recalls that she once discussed her father's abnormal behavior with her only friend, and acting upon her advice, Rhea begged her father to stop taking those photos and act like a normal parent. But he twisted everything into talk about his special love, and warned that disobedience would bring misfortune to others. Soon after, her friend's father lost his job, and the friend was transferred away. When Rhea ran to say goodbye, she found her friend along with her cat, which she is going to hand over to someone else because pets are not allowed in her new residence. The girl blamed Rhea for ruining their lives and swore never to see her again. That day, Rhea learned her father's control reached far beyond their house. Later, on her birthday, Rhea asks her father about his recent doing with her friend, but he tries to convince her to understand the uniqueness of his love and threatens Rhea to comply with him. In present, back at the lab, Rhea insists on using the cliff herb simply because her father forbade it, which automatically makes it priceless in her eyes. Furuya first rejects the idea, pointing out it is an ordinary plant that grows in almost every lawn, but with no better options left, he gives in. They brew the potion and feed it to the dead cat, yet nothing happens. Without telling Furuya, Rhea quietly steals a small amount for herself. On the other hand, the failure hits Furuya hard, and he decides to end the experiments and bury Babu properly. While Rhea walks home, Furuya notices her limp and realizes she twisted her ankle earlier. Trying to make his best impression of a reliable human, he carries her to his bicycle and offers to drop her off. Rhea complains about her life the entire ride. Outside the back entrance of her mansion, she explains this secret route is her only escape from home. Before leaving, Furuya asks her to join him the next day to pay a final tribute to Babu before the burial. She promises and slips into the backyard, but her father notices her. He confronts Rhea and slaps her hard. Meanwhile, Furuya returns home to find Ranko waiting in his room. She interrogates him about where he has been, and he produces excuses that convince no one. Suspicious since the cat's death, Ranko demands to see what he is hiding. Ignoring his protests, she opens the box herself, and the cat suddenly jumps alive, undead, and clearly in a terrible mood. At the same time, Rhea sits locked in her room, grounded by her father and worn down by everything she has endured. Believing nothing can improve, she quietly apologizes to Furuya and Babu and drinks the leftover potion, hoping that if the potion couldn't bring someone back to life, it might at least give her a way out of it.